Welcome back to Ride JBI. I'm JB. Today we finished up one of the most highly anticipated bikes for 2025, and that is the 2025 Yamaha YZ450F. Now this is a brand and model bike that I hold dear to my heart. When I first started doing suspension around 2005, at that time I was riding a 2006 YZ450, then I ended up buying another 2007, then 2008, then in 2009. So I think you can pick up, I was bleeding blue for a long time and still love the Yamahas. And one of the reasons I love them is because of how good their stock suspension settings are and that platform that it gives us as a suspension tuner to start from. So we did our motocross spec for this, and now we're going to break down what we did to the forks, what we did to the shock, why we did it, and what this rider should expect when he gets his suspension back from Ride JBI. So to the left of me are the KYB SSS twin chamber spring forks that Yamaha has had out since about 2006. And in my opinion, these are considered the Gen 2 KYB SSS forks that came out in about 2018. One of those changes was a larger mid-valve piston and an updated free piston as well. Now throughout the years, meaning since 2006 to current, Yamaha/KYB has done numerous valving changes to the forks, different spring lengths as well. So with that in mind, let's start with the fork we have here. Starting at the top, it would be our JBI spec valving. So we revalve the base valve and the mid valve in these forks. The goal of that is to maintain the amount of comfort and plushness that these forks have, but actually try to improve it a little bit more. For some of you people that ride on the West Coast and have hard packed tracks, you may find that as good as this suspension is, it can be a little chattery at high speed when you're entering into corners. So our JBI suspension valving focuses again on maintaining that plush comfort feel, but even improving it just a little bit. Now in the mid valve part of the fork is where a lot of our magic happens. That's where we adjust the mid valve to ensure we always have a certain amount of hold up as you ride aggressively. That way the fork rides up high in its travel and you have the majority of your fork travel to use as you ride across the track and over the different obstacles you may incur. Now to complement our JBI spec valving, we have two other hard parts that we installed inside of this fork. The first hard part would be our JBI volume spacer. That is this rubber piece here. It is located in the midsection of the fork, just above the spring seat. What it does is it takes up volume inside the fork, because when a fork compresses, there is oil inside of there, but there's also a air volume in there as well. When you compress the volume of a gas, it's going to react by building pressure and pushing back. So there's two ways we can manipulate the internal air volume of a fork. One way, and the most common way, is by adding oil to the outer chamber. You can do that, but it has a dual effect that also influences the spring seat as well. We have another video with a clear lower tube, and we show you the effects of adding oil to the fork. So check that out. I think you'll take a lot away from that video and have a better intuitive understanding of what adding oil does. Now, there are times you do like to add oil, but this is not one of those scenarios. So instead of adding oil, we utilize our JBI volume spacer to take up volume in the fork. And that allows us to really detailedly control how progressive the fork gets as it compresses through its travel. By progressive, I mean compressive resistance. A lot of feedback we get from riders, and my own experience as well with the stock Yamaha suspension, is it can almost be too one-dimensional, meaning it lacks a progressive feel as it moves through the travel and can bottom out a little too easily. So the most easy band-aid fix you see people utilize is by adding oil, but by doing so, that often hurts, or I don't say hurts, it reduces the comfort of the forks. So that's why we have our volume spacer. Now to complement that as well is our JBI Titanium Pro Perch. Now this is the piece that's really going to improve the bottoming resistance of these forks. Compared to the stock spring perch, ours is much more restrictive, but the unique and differentiated feature about our perch and any other brand perch is that it is pressure sensitive. By that I mean the amount of pressure we apply to the inside of this will dictate how far open our reed pedals flex open under pressure. So this ensures that we always get the maximum amount of bottoming resistance we can without the fork ever being too stiff. That is very, very important, and what makes ours so unique, just to be honest, better than what else is out on the market. So let's briefly recap what we did. We did our JBI spec valving on the fork to ensure we maintain the awesome comfort and plushness of this fork. We utilized our JBI volume spacer so we can control the progressiveness of the fork as it compresses through the travel. And then we paired that with our JBI titanium Pro Perch. So that way, when the fork compresses and it reaches the last few inches of travel, our Pro Perch is going to kick in and give us a much more comfortable hydraulic bottom out instead of a metal kind of clank bottom out that you often feel with the stock suspension. So now let's shift gears and turn our attention to the shock. All right, guys, I'm feeling like Eli Tomac because we are ripping through this video on this Yamaha YZ450 suspension. So now I got to the shock in my left hand, and the first thing that really stands out is the extra preload adjuster. If you've never used one, well, the first time you do, you'll notice just how efficient and easy they are to use and convenient. Got nothing against the OEM preload rings, but man, when it comes to adjusting sag quickly and efficiently, the extra preload adjuster is the way to go. Now, when it comes to building bikes and getting a good suspension setup, balance is very important. And we got two key features of balance. One would be matching the spring rates front to back and also the amount of damping front to back. So based on that, I bet you can guess what we did to this rear shock. We valved not only the main piston, but also the compression adjuster piston as well. And we did it in a way to complement what we did to the front forks. So by that, I mean the shocks can be smoother over the small and medium bumps, have better hold up during aggressive riding, and then better bottoming during jumps and other high impacts. Now, in order to develop these settings, it takes a lot of testing and tuning time on our end to figure out what settings pair well together between the forks and the shock and which settings do not. And that's just something that takes time. Again, Yamaha's we've been working on since about 2006. So it's a bike we are very familiar with. And it's also been very fun for us as tuners to watch the progress and updates of the bike over the years. I remember when Yamaha first talked about flipping around the motor and doing it in the reverse direction, and they've stuck to that, which is quite cool. And it gives the bike a very unique handling attribute and characteristics versus the other bikes. And they've definitely done a great job, let's say, slimming up the chassis and ergonomics of the bike. Because before 2018, it definitely had a unique feel that maybe wasn't as well received. And now times have changed and the Yamaha is back on top and one of the most well-regarded bikes. So let's review what we've done. We did our JBI spec valving on the forks and shock. We did use spring rates to match the rider's weight. So when he gets his JBI spec suspension back, what he can expect is a smoother ride over the small and medium bumps, better hold up when he's riding aggressive, and better bottoming on the jumps and high impacts. Now, we talked about our motocross spec today. We've also been busy testing, tuning, and developing settings for all the various types of off-road riding, supercross, motocross, freestyle motocross, and also arena cross. So if you'd like for us, Ride JBI, to do your suspension, please give us a call or send me an email. We can discuss the year, make, model of your bike, which options are available, and based on that, we can decide which setup would be most advantageous for you.